The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, sending Dom Perignon across Italian leather shoes worth more than most people's cars. But I didn't flinch. I kept my eyes locked on Harold Blackwood as he stood at the head of his mahogany dining table, face flushed with expensive wine and cheaper prejudice. "My daughter deserves better than trash," he announced to the room full of his country club friends, business associates, and horrified family members. "Street trash dressed in a borrowed suit, pretending to belong in our world." The silence that followed was deafening. 23 pairs of eyes swiveled between Harold and me, waiting to see if the nobody dating the princess would dare respond to the king. I carefully folded my napkin, the cloth probably cost more than my first apartment's monthly rent, and placed it beside my untouched plate of $40 salmon. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Blackwood," I said, standing slowly, "and thank you for finally being honest about how you feel." Sophia grabbed my hand. "Adrian, don't." I squeezed her fingers gently, then let go. "It's fine, love, your father's right. I should know my place." The smirk on Harold's face was worth capturing, that self-satisfied expression of a man who thought he'd won, who believed he'd finally driven away the street rat who dared to touch his precious daughter. If only he knew. I walked out of that dining room with my head high, past the Monet in the hallway, past the servants who avoided eye contact, past the Bentley in the driveway that Harold had made sure to mention cost more than I'd make in 5 years. Sophia caught up to me at my car, my sensible Honda that Harold had sneered at when I'd pulled up. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I had no idea he'd." "Shoo." I pulled her close, inhaling the scent of her perfume mixed with the salt of her tears. "This isn't your fault. I'll talk to him, make him apologize." "No." I tucked a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. "No more apologizing for him. No more making excuses. He said what he's been thinking for the past year. At least now we know where we stand. Adrian, please, don't let him ruin us." I kissed her forehead. "He can't ruin what's real. Soph, I'll call you tomorrow, okay?" She nodded reluctantly, and I drove away from the Blackwood estate, watching in my rearview mirror as the mansion grew smaller, its lights twinkling like stars I'd supposedly never reach. My phone started buzzing before I even hit the main road. I ignored it, knowing it was probably Sophia's mother, Victoria, trying to smooth things over, or maybe her brother James, offering awkward solidarity. They weren't bad people, just weak ones, too afraid of Harold to ever stand up to him. But I had more important calls to make. I voice-dialed my assistant as I merged onto the highway. "Catherine, I know it's late. Mr. Cross, is everything all right?" Catherine had been with me for 6 years. Since before the world knew who Adrian Cross really was, she could read my moods like a book. "Cancel the Blackwood Industries merger." Silence. Then, "Sir, we're supposed to sign papers on Monday. The due diligence is complete. Financing is secured." "I'm aware. Kill it. The termination fees alone will be." "I don't care about the fees. Send the notice to their legal team tonight. Cite irreconcilable differences in corporate culture and vision." "Adrian." Catherine dropped the formalities, which she only did when she thought I was making a mistake. "This is a $2 billion deal. Whatever happened at dinner?" He called me trash, Cat, in front of a room full of people, made it clear that someone like me will never be good enough for his family or, by extension, his business. That bastard. Catherine's fingers were already flying across her keyboard. I could hear it through the phone. "I'll have legal draw up the termination papers within the hour. Want me to leak it to the financial press?" "Not yet. Let him wake up to the official notice first. We'll let the media have it by noon tomorrow." "With pleasure, sir. Anything else?" I thought for a moment. "Yes, set up a meeting with Pinnacle Corp for Monday. If Blackwood Industries won't sell, maybe their biggest competitor will." Catherine laughed. "You're going to buy his rival instead?" "Why not? Trash has to stick together, right?" I hung up and drove the rest of the way to my penthouse in silence. The city lights blurred past, each one a reminder of how far I'd come from the kid who'd slept in shelters and survived on free school lunches. Harold Blackwood thought he knew me, thought he'd researched enough to understand what kind of man was dating his daughter. He knew I'd grown up poor, that I'd started working at 14, that I'd put myself through community college and then university through sheer determination and an unhealthy amount of caffeine. What he didn't know was that the scrappy kid he looked down on had built a corporate empire while staying in the shadows. That Cross Technologies, the company his own firm was desperately trying to merge with to stay relevant in the tech age, was mine. That I'd spent the last decade acquiring patents, poaching talent, and strategically positioning myself to become the kingmaker in our industry. He didn't know because I'd kept it quiet, using holding companies and trusted executives as the face of my operations. I'd learned early that real power came from being underestimated, from letting blowhards like Harold think they held all the cards. My phone rang as I pulled into my building's garage. Harold CFO, Martin Webb. That was faster than expected. Adrian, it's Martin. I'm sorry to call so late, but we just received a notice from Cross Technologies terminating the merger agreement. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Martin. But we're set to sign Monday. The board has already approved. Shareholders are expecting. Then the board should have thought about that before their CEO publicly humiliated me at dinner tonight. Silence. Then, quietly, what did Harold do? Ask him yourself. I'm sure he'll give you his version. Good night, Martin. I hung up and headed to my penthouse, pouring myself a scotch and settling onto the balcony to watch the city sleep. Somewhere out there, Harold Blackwood was about to have his evening ruined. I wondered if he'd make the connection immediately or if it would take him a while to realize that the trash he'd dismissed controlled the one thing his company needed to survive the next fiscal year. My phone buzzed. Sophia calling. I let it go to voicemail, not trusting myself to separate my anger at her father from my love for her. She didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire, but some battles couldn't be avoided. By morning, my phone had logged 47 missed calls. Harold had tried reaching me 6 times himself, which must have been killing him. The great Harold Blackwood, reduced to repeatedly calling someone he'd declared trash. I was reviewing quarterly reports over breakfast when Catherine called. The financial press got wind of the terminated merger. Bloomberg wants a statement. Tell them Cross Technologies has decided to explore other opportunities that better align with our values and vision for the future. Vague and devastating. I love it. She paused. Also, Harold Blackwood is in the lobby. I nearly spit out my coffee. He's here? Showed up 20 minutes ago. Security won't let him up without your approval, but he's making quite a scene. Should I have him removed? No. I set down my mug, thinking, send him up, but make him wait in the conference room for, let's say 30 minutes. I'm finishing breakfast. You're evil. I'll prep conference room C, the one with the uncomfortable chairs. 45 minutes later, I walked into the conference room to find Harold Blackwood looking significantly less imposing than he had the night before. His usual perfect hair was disheveled, his tie askew. The man who'd lorded over dinner like a king now looked like what he was, a desperate CEO watching his company's future evaporate. Adrian. He stood when I entered, and I could see how much it cost him. Thank you for seeing me. I sat down without offering him a handshake. You have 5 minutes. He swallowed his pride like broken glass. I apologize for last night. My words were inappropriate. Inappropriate? I laughed. You called me trash in front of your entire social circle. You humiliated me in your own home, at your own table, while I was there as your guest and your daughter's fiancé. I was drunk. No. I cut him off. You were honest. Drunk words, sober thoughts. You thought I was beneath you from the moment Sophia introduced us. Last night you just finally said it out loud. Harold's jaw tightened. Even now, even desperate, he couldn't fully hide his disdain. What do you want? An apology? You have it. A public statement? I'll make one. Just, the merger needs to happen. You know it does. Why? Excuse me? Why does it need to happen? Explain to me why I should do business with someone who fundamentally disrespects me. Harold's face flushed. Because it's business. It's not personal. Everything is personal when you make it personal. I stood up. You researched me, right? Dug into my background? Found out about the foster homes, the free lunch programs, the night shifts at warehouses to pay for textbooks? He nodded reluctantly. But you stopped there. You saw where I came from and assumed that defined me. You never looked at where I was going. I walked to the window, gesturing at the city below. Do you know why Cross Technologies is successful, Harold? Because you have good products. Because I remember being hungry. Because I remember being dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. Every person we hire, every deal we make, every product we develop, I ask myself if we're creating opportunity or just protecting privilege. I turned back to him. Your company represents everything I built mine to fight against. Old money protecting old ideas, keeping the door closed to anyone who didn't inherit their seat at the table. That's not. Isn't it? Name one person on your board who didn't go to an Ivy League school. One executive who grew up below the poverty line. One senior manager who had to work 3 jobs to put themselves through community college. His silence was answer enough. The merger is dead, Harold. Not because you insulted me, but because you showed me who you really are. And more importantly, you showed me who your company really is. This will destroy us, he said quietly. Without this merger, Blackwood Industries won't survive the next 2 years. Then maybe it shouldn't. I headed for the door. Maybe it's time for the old guard to make way for companies that judge people by their potential, not their pedigree. Wait. He stood up so fast his chair tipped over. What about Sophia? You're going to destroy her father's company? Her inheritance? I paused at the door. Sophia is brilliant, talented, and capable. She doesn't need to inherit success, she can build her own. That's the difference between us, Harold. You see inheritance as destiny. I see it as a crutch. She'll never forgive you. Maybe not. But at least she'll know I have principles that can't be bought or intimidated away. Can you say the same? I left him there and went back to my office. Catherine was waiting with a stack of messages and a knowing look. Pinnacle Corp wants to meet Monday morning. They're very interested in discussing an acquisition. Good. Make sure Harold hears about it by this afternoon. Already arranged for the information to leak. She paused. Sophia is in your private office. My heart skipped. How long? About an hour. I brought her coffee and tissues. I found Sophia curled up in my desk chair, eyes red but dry. She looked up when I entered, and I saw her father's strength but her mother's kindness in her face. Hi, she said softly. Hi. I heard what you told him. Catherine let me watch on the conference room feed. I sat on the edge of my desk. And I think. She stood up, coming to stand between my knees. I think I've been a coward. Letting him treat you that way, making excuses, hoping it would get better. Soph. No, let me finish. She took my hands. I've spent my whole life benefiting from his prejudices without challenging them. Last night, watching him, I was ashamed. Not of you. Of him. Of myself for not standing up to him sooner. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you'll have me, I want to build something new. With you. Without my family's money or connections or conditional approval. I pulled her close. Are you sure? He's right about one thing, walking away from that inheritance is no small thing. She laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd heard in days. Adrian Cross, you just terminated a $2 billion merger because my father disrespected you. I think we'll figure out the money part. I love you, I said, meaning it more than ever. I love you too. Even if you did just declare corporate war on my father. Especially because I declared corporate war on your father? Especially because of that, she agreed, kissing me. My phone buzzed. Catherine again. Sir, Harold Blackwood is holding an emergency board meeting. Our sources say they're discussing reaching out to you directly, over his head. I put the phone on speaker. Tell them Cross Technologies might be willing to discuss a merger with Blackwood Industries under new leadership. Emphasis on new. Sophia's eyes widened. You're going to oust my father from his own company? I'm going to give the board a choice, evolve or perish. What they do with that choice is up to them. She thought about it for a moment, then nodded. He won't go quietly. I wouldn't expect him to. This is going to get ugly. Probably. My mother will cry. Definitely. My brother will write another terrible song about family drama. God help us all. She smiled, and it was sharp and beautiful and a little bit dangerous. So when do we start? I smiled back. How about now? And that's how the nobody dating the princess became the king who toppled the kingdom. Not with a sword or an army, but with a simple truth, respect isn't inherited. It's earned. And those who refuse to give it when it's earned? Well, they learn the hard way that sometimes the trash takes itself out, and takes everything else with it. By the following Monday, Harold Blackwood was no longer CEO of Blackwood Industries. By Tuesday, Cross Technologies had announced a merger with the newly restructured company. By Wednesday, Sophia had accepted a position as our new head of strategic development, turning down her father's offer to fund a rival venture out of spite. And by Thursday? Well, by Thursday, Harold Blackwood had learned the most expensive lesson of his life. Never call someone trash unless you're prepared to be thrown out with it.